and it's not carbide. So the spherical have carbide, so the carbide isn't as sharp as a high-speed steel, but it stays sharp longer. The spherical, because it's spherical, if you have some curly grained wood, and you need to think about what you're using, what you're going to cut as you're cutting it. So if it's real curly grained, you want to go a little slower, you want to watch your tear out, you want to take a thinner cut. Then you have the outfeed table. So the outfeed table needs to be at exactly the height of the cutters, okay? If it's set too low, you'll end up with a bow shape, okay? If it's set too high, then it'll catch as you go across the blades at first, and it's very hard to get it flat. So the outfeed table needs to be exactly where it is. Maybe you could be a thou or two above the blades, but really not any more than that, and not any lower. So typically, so here's the adjustment for the outfeed table. The only time you're going to use this is when you change your blades, and that's really more often when you've got straight blades than if you've got the spherical cutter. So leave this locked and leave it locked all the time. In the back is the fence, and the fence will do two things. So the fence needs to be at a right angle to the outfeed table. So you want to check and set that, and you don't want to have any light between that and the blade most of the time. Okay. Occasionally you may want to tip this a little bit. So when I make cabinet doors, on the hinges are on one side, I want them square, but on the other side I tip the fence about 7 degrees, and I'll cut relief so that when the door opens up, it doesn't bind into it. So you do that with the fence. That's done with this lever here. In the back is where you can move the fence back and forth. Most of us put it out here for the widest board that we can possibly get, and we leave it there, and we just get that nice and dull in the back, and we don't use the front of the blades at all. That's pretty typical. So here's a guard for the blade. So the guard needs to be in place all the time. If you're cutting anything at all, you really want the guard in place. So the hazard zone is right here. Okay? So you really don't want to pass your hand over that. So if you have a board that's 3 inches thick, you can go over the top of the blade. The thinnest material that you want to go to is about 5/8 of an inch on the trimmer. The length of the board is super critical. So actually as you start, you're going to start on your infeed side, and this piece has got a twist in it. So it's not too bad. Okay, you're going to start. Depth of cut is important. So the depth of cut is 1/16 of an inch max. Okay, so if you're
If you move that thing that's hanging down is making me really nervous.
Oh, this?
Yeah, move it to your other
Sure, I'll tuck it in.
Okay.
The cord. So the infeed table is adjusted. There's a gauge right here on this one. Okay. So you want to loosen it. Oh my. Excuse me. And you can move it up and down here. So 1/16 of an inch. Okay. When you're edge joining, so this is got the twist in it, so I really don't want to edge joint until I get the face flat. So, tools to use when you're going to joint is, here is one that I made a long time ago, okay? And that's going to catch on the backside or the paddles. Okay? So, let's give it a go. I'm going to move that a little bit forward. So, let's see. So the shortest length that we can use on a joiner is 12 inches. Okay, and the 12 inches is you want to start on your in-feet table, and then you end up doing a couple different techniques. Okay, so this is because it's got the twist in here. I'm going to start and I'm going to put the pad on one spot, and I'm not going to move it. Okay, so, and then let's see. Can you put the dust collector on for me? I think.
That's right there in front of you. Press the on button.
So, protection. You need eye protection. Ear protection is good. We're going to turn it on. This is the surface that you really want to put all of your attention to, other than when you're first starting out. And here's my bad habit. You talk about that habit of 50 years. There's there's mine. As long as I'm back here, it's nice and safe. But now this desk gets up here and you're up here and you just want to, especially if you've done it 50 years, you really want to pay attention to those little things that you really do so that you don't make some hamburger. Okay, so when I was in high school, my woodworking teacher was missing, I don't remember, maybe ½ inch or ½ inch of his finger. Okay, and so, as a kid, you say, well, how'd you do, here's the person that's teaching you and he's had an accident. Well, I was thinking about some girl, okay? So this is one of the tools that when you're doing anything on it, you really want to pay attention to what you're doing. You don't want to be thinking about, oh, I've got this real complicated jig that I gotta make as soon as I get done with that and make that jig. You need to pay attention to where you're at. You don't want to get your thumb hooked behind it, okay? Because it'll take your thumb off just as easily, probably easier than it will the wood. So you always want to either use a paddle or you want to use something that'll catch that. Another thing is, I brought this with me, okay? It's wax, okay? So I wax my tables. So the wax will do two things. It'll prevent the table from rusting if you don't have humidity control in your shop. But what you're really trying to do is you're really trying to reduce friction, okay? So if you put a little wax on there, let it dry for 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, then buff it off, you'll be real surprised how much easier it is to push that piece of wood through there. You shouldn't have a lot of resistance. So, let me see. So don't take more than, so I'll go through the safety rules as well. Don't take more than a 1/16 of an inch off at a time. If it's starting to tear, and I didn't have any tear, this wood, you can see there's kind of a little bird's eye through it, okay? So the cutter's in pretty decent shape to take care of that. So if it started to tear, if I went in the wrong direction, started to tear, if I take thinner cuts, or you end up with a piece of wood, which is quite common, that the grain starts off in this direction, and then by the time it gets here, it's in this direction. You never get it in the right direction. You go slow on that, and you really won't have any problems. 12-inch long stock, the whole purpose of that is you want to get it started and get it back on the outfeed table where you control everything and you want to have control. If you're trying to joint something that's, if you look at the gap here, you've got some aluminum, you got cast iron, that's at least probably 5 inches right there. So if you're going to have control, you really need to be, there's 10 inches right there, you really need to be that foot long to do it. So anything less is not good to do. You want thick boards if you're going to use your hands, okay, and you're not going to use a push pad. You want thicker boards. 3 inches is the minimum thickness without a pad. Here we don't go anything thinner than 5/8 of an inch. The issue there is that when you get down to trying to do something 1/4 inch thick, you're going to try and join it, you're really going to just bend it. So it's going to take the shape of the table, really isn't going to do what it needs to do. If you have something really, really thin, maybe you take and hot glue it or something to a sacrificial piece, then run that surface, get it flat, then you can go onto it. If you got shorter stock, you've got something 6 inches, and you need to join it, I guess you put it in your bench and use a plane and join it with a plane. So tilting the fence, you can do that, really not a problem. When you go a few degrees, you can keep it up against the fence pretty easily. When you tip it 45 degrees, excuse me, when you tip it 45 degrees, you better pay a lot of attention to everything because it may want to try and creep out of there and roll. Make sure the cutter head and back of the fence is covered by the guard. So when I move the fence all the way back, the spring tension here on the pork chop isn't all the way against it. Talked about grain direction there. When straightening a cup or boat piece, the concave face down. Okay, it really makes a huge difference. Okay, so that's why as you work on it, you need to understand what your wood is. We talked a lot about seasoning of wood. Okay, if it's wet, ideally what you want to do, this wood will be wetter in the center of the board than it is on that. So you really, Rowley talks about the equilibrium moisture content quite a bit. You really want to take about the same amount of material off both sides of the wood so that it'll stay flatter for you and let the equilibrium moisture content come back. If you've got a long board, so long boards are always the tricky ones. If you've got a dresser that's 5 feet long, you want to pick out, best choice is to go pick out the straightest log that you could when you cut the tree down. A lot of us really don't have that choice, okay? And you really don't know what the log looked like when the sawer sawed it up. But you got to cut down the right tree, you got to saw it right, you got to season it right, but you need to pick out really straight boards if you're going to make something 5 feet long, okay? You need your equipment to be in good shape and tuned up properly so that outfeed table is set correctly. And then you can get it nice and flat. If you're really fighting with it, there's something wrong. You really have to go back and figure out. We didn't talk about that. Because I've never seen anybody try to feed it in the opposite direction. But never say never. I think that's about all I got on the joiner. Any questions on the joiner? So it's a safe tool if you use a lot of respect, and it's not very forgiving. There was a place out in Colorado, it's a school out there. They had a woman that was using a joiner, and she lost most of her hand. Okay, so it can happen just about that quick. So give it a lot of respect and pay attention. It's probably the most important thing that you can do. There's these other things are being 12 inches long and 5/8 of an inch thick. And those are just good things to know, but if you're not paying attention, if you got something else on your mind, it's not a good thing.